these simulations is one thing. How fast can we get this virus to spread? And how are the people going to react? And how many of them are going to fight back and how many won't? And who are they going to call? Who are they calling?
Right.
So they're very smart about all, what things to look for. But I think it's just a big chess game for them. I think it's just a big fantasy game. I don't believe, but billions and billions of dollars are put into these little chess game projects. So
how would a particular simulation come to a conclusion? How long does it run, and how do they conclude it?
They conclude it when all the humans are dead and the virus has spread.
So you and I have talked about the Resident Evil movie series.
Right, yeah.
And we've watched some of them together.
Sure.
So how does Resident Evil play into this? I mean, it's a large movie series. It's like 9 of them or something.
Well, you have the Cabal. I mean, it's a perfect description of a Cabal.
There's this umbrella corporation.
Yeah, this corporation umbrella. And they basically were a regenerative medicine corporation, if you read the storyline, actually the storybook of whoever wrote it. And what they were doing is trying to regenerate cells. And they made for face creams. So it's a great storyline because a lot of these big pharma corporations are behind it. A lot of these things. So this medicine actually went bad and started, killing, actually destroying the skin cells. But it also reanimated them at the same time. So it was really like destroying, dying, and killing, dying, because you want to kill your skin cells so they grow back faster. So it was a great concept. And the thing was, they had an underground base somewhere in the United States of America, which was very realistic.
In the movie,
which was very realistic. I couldn't believe they actually
that's the Hive, right?
Yeah, the Hive.
Okay.
And I couldn't believe they actually showed schematics, because there's many bases that have this Hive-looking type base on that movie. And
so it's very, very accurate.
Very accurate.
I mean, one of the things that I thought was so weird about this movie, first of all, the Resident Evil movies are all basically zombie films.
Yes, right.
Pretty much zombies show up in every movie.
Right.
So you go in, you have this Templar type of symbol for Umbrella Corporation. They show you this over and over again. And then you have this underground city. And one of the things that I found really weird, Emery, was the number of props, the number of details, the amount of sets that seemed overkill. Like, you don't need that much detail.
Right.
And so how did the scenes in the movie equate with what you actually knew to be true?
Absolutely. It's probably one of the most realistic sets I've ever seen in my life.
Really?
I was actually shocked the first time I saw it, because I could not believe they would, show people such detail of security, detail of how the lab is set up. Even the props were real props. The vacuum closed system rooms, the overhead hoods with the gloves, and using the special boxes to keep the viruses in. Especially what got me was the dogs that they use for being aware of certain chemicals, that all the viruses in these vats, if you break one, has a special chemical in it that the computer knows it's in the air system. So, and then dogs start barking, alarms start going off, So it was very accurate, especially utilizing an underground base. Having a secret entrance a couple miles away from the base is very popular. Having 2 agents that play, husband and wife is very popular. You might have someone living right next door, and that's really an entrance to a base in a suburbia. You wouldn't even know it. So it's a very interesting storyline, and everything in there was very accurate as far as the AI as well. They use a lot of AI now for running the base, because they don't trust humans.
And there's also these sort of boss enemies in the movie, these weird, hybrid, grotesque beings that are not just the typical zombies, but like...
Oh, right. That's a perfect description of the mutated extraterrestrials and humans. So they can get up very large, these beings, and very grotesque looking, and only have one thing on their mind. And they do mind control on those beings too, and program them to go to this place and kill this or destroy everything. So they have the ability, because they have the cerebral cortex still working.
Let's talk a little bit about what are some of the countermeasures that have been done, even with people here, to stop this.
Well, I think, like I told you before, anything that's going to destroy more than 70-75% of the population, ETs are not going to let happen. So if they were to release a virus like that, it would destroy pretty much the entire population almost. unless you have the antibodies for that. So I think it won't happen, number one. And number two, if it did, I'm sure the White Hats and the Alliance already has an antigen for that could, easily be put in the atmosphere and we would all be fine. I mean, I really think they have our backs.
Has the Alliance been actively invading these facilities and shutting them down? Is that part of?
Oh, absolutely.
I've heard this from
others.
others.
Yeah, they've been getting in there. They have a lot of moles in there. Seeing how far they're going, and securing our best interest at hand for sure. And that's why I'm not really concerned about it. So it's more of just an ego, like I said, thing.
Right.
I mean.
And I've heard from other insiders that they've just hit brick wall. Anytime the cabal has tried to do even the tiniest bit of this stuff, they just hit brick wall. Can't get it to work.
They can't because they're trying to put DNA together. They don't have the right people. They're having some really severe issues. Like I said, mixing the DNA. Of course, like let's say for instance, like dogs. You can make dogs all over the place. I mean, all different kinds of dogs. They can all have puppies. But
they're all descended from wolves,
right?
Originally. Yeah.
They all come from one, the wolf. So what they don't understand is, you can't get certain mutated ET DNA with human ET with another mutated different ET and human, and try to make something out of that, because those are definitely not from one,
right?
Because they're from multiple different.
All right. Well, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
If we're looking at us evolving and becoming a spacefaring race, which we already have the technology, it's just not being disclosed to the majority of us, then much in the same way that we have different races on Earth, that actually, from what some insiders tell me, the races we have on Earth are much more different looking from one another than most other ET planets, that they're often very similar looking to each other. Would you say that's true?
Absolutely, that's true. We're a very diverse, society. So we have many different lineages from many different extraterrestrials, but we're still all able to mate and, and have children. But we're still have very different lineages. You're correct.
So as we grow up and become more of a galactic family, how does this work in terms of sexual reproduction with other humans that might have evolved on other Earth-like planets?
Yeah,
is that possible based on your knowledge?
Based on my knowledge, absolutely possible, 100%. And it's kind of like the dog theory. Like, there are many different types of, kinds of dogs. There's many different kinds of humans. But guess what? We all come from one.
So how do you think this could play out in terms of maybe the greater plan of how we evolve through the changing conditions on Earth? I mean, I don't know what you've heard about this, but we've talked a lot about the changes in the sun, changes in the solar system, and that life on Earth, that the conditions will be very different. Have you heard about the idea that our solar system is undergoing some sort of change?
Yes, I think you're probably referring to the solar flare and different other planets nearby. There is a huge change in the solar system, absolutely. And we will be affected, that our light bodies will be affected by this.
So do you think that if we start to meet other races and we begin to have this sort of cross-cultural coupling take place, that this could be part of how humanity evolves in some way?
Not only evolves, it's how humanity survives.
What are some of the positive aspects that might happen? Like, let's say that we meet up with a race that's much more spiritually adept. Like, if we coupled, like, for example, you look at Greek mythology, right? You have gods, you have what they would call men, then you have heroes. And the heroes are the offspring of gods and men. But heroes would be like Hercules. These are people that have stupendous superpowers, and they're not even full gods. So are you aware of there being humans out there that have abilities like what the gods would have had in the Greek mythology?
Yes, I am.
And this would include what kinds of superpowers?
Well, powers that we would look in our history of, like levitation, not having to eat, things like that, able to produce light and fire, able to travel in space, able to not have to worry about temperature, not have to worry about oxygen.
By location,
Yeah, bilocation.
telepathy.
Yeah, telepathy is a big one. A lot of cognitive function powers that we don't have. That is just so far above us. We wouldn't understand because they're able to connect to the cosmos.
Do you think that at some point people like this might deliberately want to start coupling with us in order for the greater good in some sense, like the idea of heroes being born?
I do believe that. We are the superheroes of the universe, Earthlings, believe it or not. They look upon us as the superheroes because, if we don't exist, they don't exist. And they also look at us like, wow, they get to taste and hear and smell and see. And they don't know, some of them don't know what that is. Some don't have full digestive systems because their planetary atmosphere gives them everything they need. So we are looked as as heroes, believe it or not. We look, into the movies and look at these extraterrestrials in the skies above like, wow, it's so amazing. But really, they're looking back saying the same thing.
There's a lot of talk about the pineal gland. So many ancient cultures, this gland in the middle of the brain, and I studied the physiology.
I know you have, right.
And it's got retinal tissue.
That's right.
And there's this water in there. And so we're hearing that from various insiders I've heard that the pineal gland functions as a stargate, and that if we have a fully activated pineal gland, that we would be like gods. We could go wherever we want. So don't you get the sense with all these humans out there and how advanced they are that we're spring-loaded? There's something about this that we're not using all the way.
We have everything that everyone else has. We're just not activated yet, And it's silly because that's why we are the superheroes. We have more than everyone else, believe it or not. So it's like if we could just, figure out that code and get that download and ascend properly, then, we could be a flash of light or, take this form or any form we want.
One of the interesting things that Corey Good has shared with us is this concept that a variety of different ET groups, and a lot of which are more human-like, that in his program they call genetic farmers, were apparently taking the very best ascension type of DNA and then mixing it all together here, that they had 22 major different programs on Earth. So do you think it's possible that, because you kind of said that, something not quite as specific as I said, but do you think that Earth might be sort of like a garden in which these advanced superpowers have been stored inside of us for future activation?
Yes, that's exactly right. It's the womb that we're still growing in and still evolving in and waiting to be activated and reaching out, making the intention to reach out to be activated and to ask for other cultures to visit and to be part of that.
When I read the Law of One material, I started to have psychic experiences. I started to hear voices that were benevolent, positive, giving me positive guidance, and they call that tuning. And so I'm curious if you feel that, even apart from the sexual reproduction thing, just simply being exposed to advanced humans, simply talking to them or being in their presence would start to activate.
It would totally activate. Your field that you put off is everywhere, and it's, of course, right here, most concentrated. So being in another person's field, someone comes home angry, and then everyone else gets angry in the house, or someone comes home laughing and giggling. The angry person at home starts laughing and giggling. It's the same concept, but it actually does a frequency change to modify DNA by being around
it's almost 15 minutes, so I'm going to turn this off.
That are, have a little bit more.
She thinks it's time to jump down.
Energy and frequency than you do, because it's up to your frequency.
Don't hurt me! Don't hurt me!
Get to that frequency.
I remember talking to Henry Deacon, who was the first really heavy-duty space program insider who I got to talk to. Unfortunately, he's never been willing to come forward now. He did come forward a little bit back in 2009 in public. After talking to me for 2 years, we had extensive conversations. And he said that the feeling of love and peace around some of these extraterrestrial humans was so amazing that it was literally